If you can sit quietly after difficult news, if in financial downturns you remain perfectly calm, if you can see your neighbors travel to fantastic places without a twinge of jealousy, if you can happily eat whatever is put on your plate, if you can fall asleep after a day of running around without a drink or a pill, if you can always find contentment just where you are probably a dog. Good morning, everyone. Oh, received reconnect message from Twitch IRC server. Yes, I need to handle that. I need to update my code to handle that. Hey, Lost Vagabond, 5-month resub. Tape. Thank you. Let's see. How do I do this? The shell script for the chat bot and an update. Restart it. Hey, Tashi B. 4-month resub. Thank you. Oh, good. We have chat now. Hi, everyone. Hope you're all doing okay. I'm doing okay. I'm a little tired. I went with some friends up to Indiana to see the eclipse in totality. It was very neat. It was a great time. It was a nice little retreat that was bookended by, it was 12-hour drive one day, and then eclipse day, and then 12-hour drive back home. So it was, it was an arduous journey, but we had a good time. What are we watching today? Who's been checking out goldenvcr.com and looking at those tapes? Tell me what you want to see. Hey, it's Bingo. It's live on Discord. The Cute Kitties tape. Which one is that? Here is a link to the Discord if you want to participate in Bingo or just hang out. One of the Dave or Money Machines tapes. Do we have more Dave? I don't know if we have more Dave. Let's see, number 334. The Kitty Cats. Itty Bitty Kitty Wildlife. Okay, we can do that. 5 months from... 5 months? My lord. From Storms 002. 5 months, yay. Thank you. All right, let's get this. MSRP 1995. Oh, I forgot to make the thing go away. Let's see. This was sent in by West Coast Deb. Thank you, Deb. From 1997, The Kitty Cats. Itty Bitty Kitty Wildlife. Featuring lion cubs, leopards, cougars, bobcats, cheetahs, and tiger cubs. An absolute must-see. 5 stars from someone. Was it rated 5 stars by a committee of award-winning cinematographers, or was it produced by award-winning cinematographers? This is a joyous, a beautiful record of the journey of VCR as a medium. MSRP $19.95, 99 cents. Before the king of the jungle becomes king, he starts out life as a tiny, precious prince. The same is true with his feline cousins. Award-winning cinematographers Leonard Lee Rue, Will Taylor, and Belinda Peck, we'll have to look them up on IMDb, take their cameras into Africa and the American wild to capture baby lions, leopards, cheetahs, bobcats, tigers, and cougar cubs on film in all their precious glory. This amazing show will provide endless joy and entertainment to people of all ages. Just wait until you hear all the fantastic music. These are wildlife babies like you've never experienced before. Tape is rewound. Excellent. Let's do it. Wait, Marshmallow Entertainment Company. Okay. And let me open the thing that gives us the VHS feed. There we go. Oh boy. Crunchy.
What happens when you cross rock and roll with the world's most spectacular wildlife creatures?
Or no? Rock and roll sharks.
Introducing Rock on the Wild Side. This planet's most awesome predators cut to monster rock and roll.
Cut to generic, royalty-free rock and roll.
Classic rock, nature's wildest creatures, together on one extraordinary video. It's all here. Award-winning footage, nature's most gripping, thrilling drama. The chase, the capture, the escape. And it's all yours for the low price of just $19.95. Satisfaction guaranteed if you call this number and order now. And hey, there's more.
Shake it to the east, shake it to the west. When it comes to shaking, you're the wow, baby.
Animal bloopers? Animals just shaking. 60 minutes of animal shaking.
Call now and you'll also receive this outrageous video, Wildlife Rocks, free. Catch all your favorite creatures of the wild at their weirdest, wackiest, and wildest. It's yours absolutely free if you call and order now. You get both incredible videos for just $19.95. Available only through this exclusive television offer. Take a rock on the wild side and call right now.
Those clips are largely just animals shaking water off of themselves, like your dog would do.
Have your credit card ready. Operators are standing by from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. Guaranteed to be the funniest, most exciting wildlife videos you've ever seen or your money back. You get both Rock on the Wild Side and Wildlife Rocks for only $19.95 plus shipping and handling. Have them delivered to your home or office. Take a rock on the wild side and order your set today.
The rhino. He's just one species. But if he goes...
S'morey, a marshmallow who does marketing for us. Aw. Yeah, these are some very 1997 promos and PSAs. If you get rid of the rhinos, the trees go. Because trees depend on rhinos. I guess.
Welcome to the kitty cats. Like many other animals in the wildlife kingdom, a cat reveals its greatest attribute of emotion when it comes to raising their young.
Comic Sans!
Kitties have been around for 50 million years. That's one very long roar. There are 35 different species of cats, including the wild cat, which is where our favorite household cats come from.
I feel like we need a saxophone emote. This was kind, yes. Okay, Leonard Lee Rue III, Will Taylor, and Belinda Peck. Award-winning cinematographer Leonard Lee Rue III has 2 credits on IMDb for cinematographer: Jailhouse Rock's Zoo of the Wild and Baby Talk Animal Communication.
Meet the leopard, a very popular and beautiful cat. The leopard makes its home in tropical rainforests and arid savannas. You'll also find leopards in cold mountains and urban suburbs.
Oh, it does sound like the Dan tape. Yeah.
The spots on the leopard's coat are excellent camouflage for hiding, especially in trees. The leopard spots are so individually unique, they are used to identify one cat from another. You might say that the spots are the fingerprints of a leopard.
Morning. We're learning about... Oh, shit.
The whiskers of the leopard,
Right.
as well as
Forgot
all
to
cats,
activate the tape.
are extremely
We're watching
sensitive.
this.
They enable the cats to hunt in near total darkness
Don't
by
worry, I
detecting
can-
even the slightest air movements. Although the cat's eyesight is
Don't
very
worry.
sharp, it cannot see in total darkness, as many people believe. Many centuries ago,
What
nobles
database
of the
is this?
Roman court sometimes kept leopards and cheetahs, which they mistakenly thought were the male and female of the same species. Leopards hunt primarily small mammals and birds. They are excellent tree climbers and often drag their prey up a tree, out of the reach of other scavengers who want to snatch away
Yeah, I'll be
their
honest with you folks. I'm just zoning out and listening to this music.
Research has shown that the tree-stored leopard food could have provided our early ancestors with a regular source of meat. The leopard is an intelligent animal. It has the ability to move with great speed and silence, like a stealth bomber. And its ability to freeze instantly and leave no tracks is almost legendary. Animal photographer G. Schillings put it best when he said, "The leopard is literally everywhere and nowhere."
The leopard is God, and the leopard is a polar bear. It has no fear.
Kitties. Sweet. Cuddly. So
Yeah.
innocent.
Are we all a little tired?
And so very, very
For various
fast.
reasons. Oh, God. Not anymore. What is this tape? I love it. That's not a cat. That's a hippo and an elephant. Also, I retroactively fixed the start time of this tape in the database. I had to do was SSH into the server and connect to the Postgres database and run this query. Easy. That sounds like the perfect length for this. No, Tapeboy cannot directly access the database. You can't SQL injection me by crafting a Tapeboy command, a malicious Tapeboy command. Hello, Bella.
Cave paintings reveal that lions have been present in Europe some 15,000 years ago. Lions could still be found in the Middle East and northern India up to the turn of this century. A pride, or family, consists of related females who share in the raising of the young. Since it is the female lioness that does most of the hunting for the family, she leaves her cubs in the safe care of aunts and sisters. One might say that it was the lion who invented the concept of babysitting.
That would be a wild thing to say, but
In
I
a
guess you
pride,
could say it.
The young males stay with the family until they are mature enough to cause conflict with the only other male in the group, the father. Then the young male lions will be driven away, spending a couple of years wandering on their own until they find a family of their own.
Little feline Oedipus complex.
Lions take advantage of the smallest cover and flatten themselves so closely to the earth that they seem to become part of it. Young cubs practice this technique in their play from a very early age.
Wally.
The lioness is a devoted mother. She stays close to her cubs, giving them lots of affection and teaching them the ways of the lion.
Of course his name is Leo. Of course.
The cubs are fortunate that they are almost never left alone while growing up. They have constant care from close family members. Surely this is how a family was intended to be.
The music goes really hard in this tape. Like, they don't know how to dial it back. Maybe they're dialing it back now. The last time we had like a moment of calm, it only lasted 30 seconds before it launched into like full-blown, glorious African
The cat
choir.
sits at the top of the predator pyramid.
Sunny
You won't
stride.
find them to be the prey of any other predator except one, man.
What a cutesy way of saying that humans murder animals a lot. They have no predators, except for man.
Kitties have large eyes with binocular and color vision. In the daylight, they can see about as well as you can, but at night, they can see 6 times better.
They're so tiny. Okay, now we get PlayStation 1 JRPG Village music. This is the idyllic scene of the village before the evil
Cubs are
empire
kept
comes
hidden
and burns it
until they
down,
reach the
and, all
age of 6
and the
to
chosen
8
lion
weeks.
has to
After which,
take up the
they
holy
start
sword
to follow their mother out into the open.
and find the 7 gazelle carcasses of destiny. Leo Bladeheart. Okay, now they're wacky and zany. Before they were majestic. Before that, they were emotional and loving.
North America, home of 3 small cat species, among them the bobcat. Like the other 2 American cats, the lynx and the mountain lion, the life of the bobcat is very secretive.
Bobcats go brrp, like house cats? I don't think I've ever heard a house cat go brrp.
Bobcat kittens are born in a natal den, usually located in a cave. The natal den is used until the kittens are old enough to travel. Once the kittens are on the move, the mother bobcat will transport the kittens to another den site. In order to protect the kittens from other predators, she will use as many as 5 different den locations.
Trill girl. That's how I always pronounced it. Oh, we must be going to America now, because we have Appalachian music. Muddy bluegrass. I like the part where the man shuts up and we just hear cool music and watch cats do stuff. Chicken. Oh, that's a beautiful, beautiful image.
Many centuries ago, in the year
There's a little
450
bow tie.
BC in Egypt, cats held very high status, similar to cows in India today. If anyone caused the death of a cat, even by accident, that person might have been lynched by angry town mobs. Cat owners would shave their own eyebrows off if their pet cat died of natural causes.
That's not a cat, that's a fish.
Meet the mountain lion, or puma. This cat is the largest of the 3 cats in North America, though not nearly as large as his African cousin. The mountain lion lives mostly in rocky areas, ranging from forest to desert, from southern Canada south to southern South America. There really isn't much about the mountain lion that is lion-like, except for its color. When we think about lions, we think about the African lion, the king of the jungle. While the African lion lives in prides, the mountain lion lives all by himself. African lions hunt together in a group. Because the mountain lion hunts alone,
Oh, that's right. I have
he must
a
rely on his secretiveness and cunning behavior. Because of this, the mountain lion is rarely ever seen,
Hooray.
as he is always hiding, moving in the shadows and
I don't
brush.
care that much about
The
the
male
definition
mountain
of my
lion,
face.
the father,
but it
leaves
helps
his
the
mate
camera have a
even before
decent
the
frame rate.
cubs are born.
Okay, this is like the intro theme to Rhoda or something. This is a
Depending on
1970s
where you
sitcom
live,
intro.
this cat has many names. The puma, cougar, panther, American lion,
What I'm learning from this
mountain
tape is
lion,
that all
painter, or catamount.
large cat
Catamount meaning cat on mountain.
cubs look the same regardless of species. Like, I couldn't tell you if that's a cougar, a cat cub, or a
Early
lion cub.
Dutch traders who were
I guess
buying
cougars are
lion
lions.
skins were surprised to find that all the skins were those of female lions, and they had no black manes. In response, the local native Indians claimed that all the male lions lived too high up in the mountains. Therefore, it was too difficult to hunt them down. This, of course, was not the truth. The Dutch fur traders were really buying mountain lion skins and not the African skins as they believed.
I think,
During the first 3 months of life, puma cubs are left
I don't know how you
behind
guys feel. I
while
think
their
this
mother
tape would be
hunts for
better.
food.
This
A
tape
very
doesn't need the
dangerous
narration.
time for the kiddies. After 3 months,
We would
they
be
will go
fine
with their
without it.
mothers to feed on kills and learn about their environment. The places for all the cats of our world to live are vanishing at an alarming rate.
Oh, ecological message for the children.
The tiger, largest of all living cats, is only found on the Asian continent, where species of large deer and wild pigs roam. In Asia, people hunt and eat deer and wild pigs. They also chop down the forests where the pigs and deer live, causing these two wildlife creatures to slowly disappear. As the tiger's prey disappears, so too will the tiger. The puma faces a similar fate. Yet this magnificent cat just may hold out for a longer period of time because it lives in a more rugged terrain. This means that people who attempt to disrupt the balance of life and the environment of the mountain lion will have a much harder time invading its home.
The people who try to disrupt the
As a
environment
result,
of the mountain lion
there is still hope
run the risk
for this
of getting
great
killed
lion
by
of
the mountain
North
lion.
America.
Oh, wild. I just Googled Marshmallow Entertainment Company. The first thing that comes up is an entry on Company Bumpers Wiki, which is a fandom wiki collecting like the FBI warning screens and various other graphics for stuff like this. Which is similar to what I'm doing, but I'm not doing it on a fandom wiki. The worst website. Like, look at this. If you can get past all the ads. Someone has just lovingly collected like every possible copyright notice screen from 20th Century Fox video.
Welcome to the Lion's Kingdom. Imagine for just one moment if we lived in a world where there were no cats of any kind. Instead of driving a jaguar or a cougar, you might be driving a hyena or a jackal. Moviegoers might be greeted with a screaming baboon instead of the king of the jungle.
What?
And your favorite breakfast cereal might just feature Tony the turkey vulture instead of the tiger. Could you
Sorry,
even imagine someone producing a hit Broadway musical all about hyenas? Or an animated Hollywood feature movie called The Jackal King? Out on the African plains, a world without cats would still leave us with other predators, such as wild dogs, hyenas, and jackals. These creatures would still possess the great speed given to predators by Mother Nature. But the power.
Imagine if we lived in a
and
world
romance
where
of
all
the
the
great
cats were instead
would
jackals.
still be missing in both the wildlife kingdom and our world.
Benny the Tony.
Cheetah cubs are very playful. play fights between brothers and sisters help them learn the social and hunting skills needed to be successful adults. Why does the cheetah have spots? Some say it's for camouflage in the dappled shade of forest. But the cheetah lives out on the open plains and avoids dense cover. So why is it still so heavily
Kairos,
spotted?
of course.
Cheetah cubs are hidden in dense cover, yet they are born with just a few spots, which at first are mostly underneath. But by age 2 to 2.5 months, spots begin to cover the entire body. Eventually, the cheetah cubs begin traveling
The
out
image
in the
generation
open with
model
their
does
mother.
seem very good at producing furry art, probably because it was trained on lots of furry art that people did not consent to being used to train an AI image generation model.
The cheetah is the fastest cat on the planet. All cats stalk in a similar slow manner, but none reach the cheetah's top flight speed of 68 miles per hour. At those kinds of cruising speeds, the spots on the cheetah become a blur, probably confusing its prey and giving us at least one answer to the question as to why the cheetah is spotted in the first place.
In a world without cats, a jaguar would not be called a jaguar. It would be called a reticulated python.
One difference between big cats and the small cats can be found in the roar and the purr. Big cats roar but cannot purr. Small cats purr but cannot roar. The reason is, on big cats, the base of their tongue has a pliable cartilage which allows for greater movement. This feature is not present in the small cats, so you never have to worry about your little kitty cat at home roaring like a lion in the middle of the night.
Chiefs. Love those Chiefs from Shame Food. I really want a snack food brand called Shame Food. A 200 bits from Alistair. Thank you. Ghost of a Cheetah Plane. Oh. It's got jet engines for feet.
The world of the kitty cats, an exciting and playful domain. Who would believe that one day these adorable creatures will grow up to be dangerous predators?
And then
In
become
fact,
extinct
Some
because
African lions have been known
habitat
to hunt
destruction.
man and only eat the meat of humans, which makes you stop and think, what really lurks behind those soft, cuddly faces of the kitty cats? A question you might be better off pondering when those cats are still kitties instead of full-grown adults. Thanks for visiting with us.
Bye, Billy Phillips. Ooh, a ghostly football team. They have no faces. This has been, in actual fact, 34 minutes. I need to remember today that I have to go get a haircut this afternoon. So I gotta make sure I end the stream before 1. Itty bitty kitty wildlife. Dedicated to the itty bitty kitties. David, Maddie, Kobe, and Ariel. Okay. Cool. Yeah, that was great. Thank you, Deb. Let's hear it for Deb. That was a a really fun tape. Let's see. I don't know how random this random really is. I landed on Tales from the Land of Gullah. How do we feel about that right now? Or what else do I want to see? We saw Anita Singleton pray there as Aunt Pearlie Sue in Tales from the Lands of Gullah for Kids, which was an excellent tape. Oh, tiny wrestler. He's so tiny. How many big is the Apollo 30? Oh, we don't know. WGBH Boston, TV Asahi. Ooh. Oh, an hour and 27 minutes. Okay, let's pull. I will pull. Tape. Gullah. Apollo. 1 minute pull. Go. Vote, 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 vote. We gotta get to, we do at some point need to return to the NASA tapes. Let's see. So we watched Mercury and Gemini, and the next tape up in that series is going to be Apollo 11 and Apollo 13. Those are shorter. Oh, and that one's not rewound. Damn. Okay. Okay, Apollo 13, To the Edge and Back. Cool. Okay. Yeah. Oh, it is rewound. That's good. All right, let's do it. Let's do Apollo. I'll be right back with that. That's tape number 424. Apollo 13, To the Edge and Back, the real story of the most miraculous odyssey in space. In April 1970, James Lovell, Fred Hayes, and Jack Swigert soared into space aboard Apollo 13, confident they would walk on the moon. But 200,000 miles from Earth, the muffled bang of an exploding oxygen tank dashed their dreams and brought them close to what Newsweek would call a death no man has ever died before. Death in space, cold and alone, outward bound to the blackness of the void. I guess, what was it, Soyuz 11 lost their crew in space? Or they died during re-entry. They died in space and then completed re-entry and were then subsequently dead. I don't know if that was public at the time. This riveting Emmy-nominated documentary chronicles the astronauts' Herculean endurance and NASA's astonishing efforts to bring them home from their hell in the heavens. Interviews with crew members, their families, and NASA officials, extensive archival footage, and dramatic computer animation tell the authentic story of space exploration at its most incredible. A gripping tale of true heroism, says Variety. Apollo 13 is a welcome reminder of when we know how to do things right, even when everything went wrong. It's copyright 1994. Apollo 13, the movie, came out in 1995. All right. The true original story of Apollo 13. Here we go. Apollo 13 to the edge and back. This was sent in by Bella Bunny. This is from a batch of tapes that I scanned on stream and haven't gone back and added like runtime information and stuff too.
Apollo 13 flight controllers, give me a go, no go for launch.
You know that Easter vacation trip we
Oh,
had
it's the
planned
movie.
for Acapulco?
Procedures, go. Control.
It's the movie.
There might be a slight
Let's
change
make it
at
smaller.
Maybe say
Thank you for the promo.
moon.
Booster, go. Retro.
We're go flat.
GNC.
We're go.
And I take the controls and I steer it around.
FAO.
We're go flat.
Remember that movie? It's a movie you can watch. It's not the movie we're about to watch.
Does it bother you that the public regards this flight as routine?
There's nothing routine about flying to the moon. I can vouch for that.
We're making it small. We're talking over it. I don't want to cut this out.
The clock is running.
Houston, we have cleared the tower at 13:13.
Okay, guys. We're going to the moon.
This is the crew of the Apollo 13, wishing everyone back on Earth a pleasant evening.
Houston, we have
Stand back.
We got a wicked shimmy up here. We are venting something out into space. It's definitely a gas of some sort.
It's like the heart rates are skyrocketing.
The Apollo 13 spacecraft is apparently losing breathing oxygen. The emergency has ruled out any chance of a lunar landing.
Why are so many people
Kevin
here?
Bacon in
Something
space.
broke on your daddy's spaceship.
I have a request from the news people.
Okay, so that's continuing to be a trailer for Apollo 13. How about that? What a great trailer for Apollo 13, the Hollywood movie.
We don't have that much time.
Explode space-time. 3D render of a VHS tape. I love it. Now available on video cassette and Laserdisc. Yeah, be sure to follow Golden Laserdisc on Twitch. It's our newest spinoff. MCA Universal Home Video. It's jumping up and down.
The moon has immense power. It moves oceans. It pulls at lovers' hearts. We pray to it and stand awed by its eclipses.
Apollo Ray.
In the 1960s, it became a target, the focus of a military and political competition between rival superpowers. America's effort to be first to the moon was called Apollo, after the Greek god who drove his chariot to the sun. Apollo let us feel the wonder and triumph of man's first steps into the galaxy. it also introduced us to a new fear. On Apollo 13, disaster struck, and 3 men faced being lost forever in the dark, cold void of space.
Was that a real
Their
shot?
story
Yeah.
is one of the great adventures
Is
in
this-
the history of exploration.
This is what their
and discovery.
this is what a made-for-TV movie CG budget got you in 1994. Apollo 13. To the edge and back.
April 11th, 1970. 3 men suit up for a voyage that will end up as perilous as any taken by Columbus or Magellan. They are the crew of Apollo 13. The commander is Jim Lovell. The 42-year-old father of 4 is one of the most experienced astronauts in the world. Lovell and 36-year-old lunar module pilot Fred Hayes will walk on the moon's surface. Hayes, a rookie, is leaving a pregnant wife and 3 children at home. Command module pilot Jack Swigert, 38, and another first-timer, is the only bachelor astronaut. He's a last-minute replacement for another astronaut who was exposed to the measles.
Another astronaut whose name we won't even say.
All 3 are experienced test pilots. They're used to taking risks.
That's the kind of people we wanted in that place when we selected them. Guys that are used to putting their lives on the line every day and knowing every minute, every second that they fly, that they are apt to be in a position where they do something wrong or something bad happens, they're allowed to be dead.
6 hours before liftoff, Jim Lovell leads the way out to the rocket.
We got in the van, drove down to the big Saturn V. This thing is loaded with about 5.5 million pounds of high explosives, and consequently everybody else is about 3.5 miles away. We went up the elevator all by ourselves, up this gantry that's usually filled with people during the test phase and the construction. Right next to me, of course, was this huge Saturn V. Near the top of it, it was spewing out gaseous oxygen, almost like it was alive. And I looked down at the ground and 330 feet below, and then it suddenly dawned on me, my gosh, these people are going to send us to the moon.
As Lovell, Hayes, and Swigert enter the capsule that will take them to the moon, they know success depends on intricate teamwork and flawless machinery. What they don't know is this machine is flawed. Less than 10 feet below the crew's couches, deep within the service module, there are cracked wires in an oxygen tank. The tank is now full of liquid oxygen, which is all that's preventing a spark that could cause an explosion.
14, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8. Ignition sequence has started. 6, 5, 4, 3.
Liftoff for Apollo 13 is at 13:13 Houston time.
Yeah, I mean, Apollo 1
Some
was
in the crowd find all the 13s
pure
an
oxygen
ominous portent,
environment.
but NASA refuses to pay it any mind.
Well, it was some sort of like short or spark in the
The
wiring.
launch goes smoothly. In 3.5 days,
it was like frayed wiring.
Lovell and Hayes should be on the moon,
coupled with
collecting rock
a pure oxygen environment,
testing for signs of volcanic activity, and continuing the search
and a hatch
for signs
that was,
of life.
Could not be opened once there was a pressure change inside.
13 Houston, you're looking good. Roger.
For an old hand like Jim Lovell, it feels good to be back in space.
The sights, the sounds, the smells, the stars, they all were very, very familiar to me. I really sort of enjoyed being up there again. I sort of enjoyed, you know, being the sort of the narrator, the guide for the other two guys, telling what's going on. Of course, I was more or less businesslike. Well, they kept looking at me like, you know, oh, this guy's been here before, doggone it, but we haven't. We're going to enjoy this.
Rookies Hayes and Swigert quickly settle in. To Hayes, the cabin has a familiar feel.
I don't know how many hours I spent in training in a command module, but it was the capsule was not an unfamiliar place to be. It was a very comfortable place, the right place to be.
After a brief stay in Earth orbit, the crew fires the Saturn's third stage and heads off for the moon.
The 1994 CG is very good. I mean, it's interesting to compare this to the CG in like Apollo 13.
The men who will be
which
working
had a much
this
larger
flight
budget.
are also settling in. Gene Kranz is the lead flight director.
The spacecraft is moving 5 miles a second in Earth orbit and 7 miles a second to and from the moon. So you cover an awful lot of territory in a very short period of time. So we always try to use every second, every minute when things are going right to individually prepare ourselves for what is coming next. Everything has to go perfectly in this business, and it's up to us to steer it in the path so that that happens.
Through the first day, everything is working perfectly. Even Jim Lovell's cassette tape player.
This little tape recorder has been a big benefit to us in passing some of the time away in our transit out to the moon. And it's rather odd to see it floating like this in Odyssey while it's playing the theme from 2001.
Things are so relaxed,
Fred
Hayes takes to playing practical jokes on his crewmates. His favorite is pushing the repressurization valve, which produces a loud bang in the spacecraft.
Stand by one. Yeah, I got him with the cabin repress valve. Every time he does that, our hearts jump in our mouth.
Lovell got his chance to go to the moon because America feared the Soviet Union would capture the high ground of space. That seemed likely in the midst of the Cold War, when the Soviets launched the first artificial moon.
Today, a new moon is in the sky, a 23-inch metal sphere placed in orbit by a Russian rocket.
It's a field day for the hams of
Sputnik marked the beginning of the space age. It humbled the Americans, while Soviet self-confidence and pride surged.
First of all, it was simply the proudness for the achievement of the Soviet Union. Americans are still on the ground, and we are in the space. You know, it was tremendous psychological, I don't know how, joy. Because we've done it not with anybody else, but with Americans who were you know, secretly always envying for his technical prowess. And now we are America.
A month later, the Soviets struck again.
Oh, like
a dog, a living creature far in outer space for the first time.
If the Russians could orbit a dog, they could orbit a warhead.
The heavier Mutnik, as they've nicknamed it, means Russia probably has an operational intercontinental ballistic missile.
Pour one out for Leica.
Next on Russia's space timetable could be a rocket landing on the moon. They're letting the world guess while Mutnik zooms along.
America rushed to match the Russians, but its efforts were a public relations disaster.
Yeah, we blew up a lot of rockets early on. And then the tables turned and the Soviets kept blowing
Getting
up their
into
rockets.
space proved technically more complex and ultimately more risky than anyone had imagined. In 1961, the Russians once again stunned the world as cosmonaut Yuri Gagarin became the first man in space. Gagarin became the most celebrated person alive. Russian prestige reached new heights throughout the world. It took almost a year before America could match Gagarin's accomplishment.
Gagarin had a great smile. That's probably why they picked him.
As he rose higher into the sky, the clouds opened up to let John go by. Johnny Glenn, what a man.
Glenn's flight gave all America a lift, but there was no denying that the U.S. was still stuck in second place.
You'll be sure we are behind, and will be behind for some time in manned flight. But we do not intend to stay behind, and in this decade, we shall make up and move ahead.
Determined to give the space race a finish line America could cross first, President John F. Kennedy proposed going to the moon.
We choose to go
to the moon in this decade and do the other things. Not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
Ихний президент Кеннеди — это гениальный человек. Он понял, что
Their President Kennedy, he's a genius. He understood that they needed such achievements in space that Russians would not be able to match.
Tell you the truth, I was frightened to death by that speech. I didn't know what the hell was in front of us. I never thought about the surface of the moon. I never thought about long-range communications at 270,000 miles. I'd never heard of a free return trajectory. I'd never thought about going away from this planet.
But Jim Lovell had. In fact, he'd dreamed of it since childhood. And when he was selected as one of NASA's second group of astronauts, he became one of 24 Americans and Russians with a chance to be the first man on the moon.
Imagination can run wild, yes. You know, I'd love to be the first guy to land on the moon. And this was a drive, I think, that all of us had at that particular time.
Everyone is talking about spaceships. To the moon they all want to go. But there's one thing about spaceships that every girl wants to know.
Oh boy.
Oh, will there be space in a spaceship for a girl and boy to make love? Will there be...
Through the early 60s, both sides pushed hard.
That's really the eternal question.
Held their lead with still more.
That's what everyone wants to know about space.
Valentina Tereshkova became the first woman in space. Konstantin Feoktistov designed and flew the first multi-person capsule.
Our bosses, they did it under the banner of a flight to the moon. It was done for prestige, because of the competition, to show we can produce a ship for several people.
I can't find any... either the Johnny Glenn is a mighty, mighty man or the Will There Be Room in a Spaceship for a Girl and Boy to Make Love. Neither of these songs I can find anything about on Google.
Unbeatable.
It's like their original Kid Songs Kids, produced for this tape.
American colleagues. This experience we will use during our program with landed onto the moon.
When he got back, Leonov started training for a lunar landing. He believed it was his destiny.
It's really great that they're interviewing
the first man on the moon.
It said this was co-produced with Asahi TV, the station that I was recently on for half a second.
In 1967, the Soviet moon program started to fall apart.
WGBH Washington and TV Asahi. So
One of their cosmonauts was killed during an emergency re-entry.
It's really great that they're interviewing
then, on 3 successive launch attempts,
cosmonauts.
Their newly designed moon rocket exploded. The Soviet moon program was grounded, though no one in the West knew it at the time. America kept pushing, and in the summer of 1969, the crew of Apollo 11, Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, and Michael Collins, headed to the moon for a rendezvous with history.
Yeah, we were interviewed by
a pilot for this
a
mission,
Japanese TV station,
but he
while
would
we were
not
on a
realize
ferry.
his dream of being the first man to walk on the moon.
They had enough footage to do a full profile and talk all about us, and then they just used a single shot of us from behind to be like, there are foreigners that take this boat too. That was it. Oh, right. This is one of the most momentous moments in all of human history.
Contact light. Okay, engine stop. We've had shutdown. Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed. Roger, Tranquility. We copy you on the ground. You got a bunch of guys about to turn blue. We're breathing again. Thanks a lot. It's one small step for man. One giant leap for mankind.
Though the image broadcast from the moon was fuzzy and gray, it was sufficient to allow hundreds of millions of people back on Earth to share in the wonder.
That's the moon, baby.
In our control mission center, all people, congratulations! And after that, we will go to restaurant and drink some of glass to health of this crew. It is according to Russian customs.
The crew of Apollo 11 was welcomed back to Earth as triumphant heroes, the personification of everything that made America great. Lovell and others in the Apollo program realized that walking on the moon could make a man a king on Earth.
I mean, only the first guys that did it. Nobody threw a parade for Gene Cernan.
Apollo 13 is now 15 hours into what still appears to be a routine flight. Lovell and Hayes are just days away from joining one of history's most exclusive clubs. Only 4 men have walked on the moon. The crew has been drawing on oxygen tank 2 since the flight began, but the cracked wires inside are still covered. Unaware of a problem, the crew reconfigures their spacecraft for the journey to the moon. The crew sits in the conical command module. It's at the top of the rocket. Attached to it is the cylindrical service module, which supplies the command module with propulsion and electrical power and houses the oxygen tanks. After turning around, the crew docks the command module to the spider-like lunar module and extracts it from the spent rocket's 3rd stage. Once docked, the crew can move between the two through a short tunnel. Later, Jim Lovell and Fred Hayes move through that tunnel to check out the lunar module, Aquarius. They are full of confidence and good cheer.
And now Fred's engaged in his favorite pastime.
He's not in the food locker, is he?
That's his second favorite pastime. He's rigging his hammock for sleep on the lunar surface now to try it out to see what it's going to be like.
Roger, sleeping and then eating.
Forward.
31 hours into the flight of Apollo 13, the crew prepares for a course change. In order to explore a new part of the moon, Apollo 13 will leave the free return trajectory flown by all previous missions. Getting home will now require a second rocket burn. If something goes wrong, they could drift forever in the void of space.
Drifting forever in the void of space.
Like everything else so
does
far,
not sound like a fun way
the
to
rocket
go.
burn goes off without a hitch. It's April 13th, and the crew of Apollo 13 is 200,000 miles from Earth, 4/5 of the way to the moon. After 55 hours, 50 minutes of flight, the cracked wires in Tank 2 are now exposed. As the crew prepares to go to sleep, Mission Control radios up a routine request. Would they please turn on the fans in the oxygen tanks?
Jim was heading back into the command module, and we were going to do a little relook at checklists. This was my plan, and then ready everything and go to bed. Then we heard the bang.
Okay, so that's Fred Hayes.
A muffled type of noise. The spacecraft rocked back and forth. I could hear the jets firing because we were on an autopilot that would stabilize the ship, and then everything was quiet.
You could actually hear, metallic bending noises in the tunnel area where the vehicles were still connected, but they were moving relative to each other to have caused that kind of a tin canning sound.
We looked at each other. What was it? We didn't know. I mean, nothing had come through the bulkhead. I mean, we didn't look like a meteorite hit the command module. Everything was still there. I looked at Fred, and, I could tell that Fred didn't do this, didn't do anything, although he was prone to, do some practical jokes by throwing a switch. He gave a similar noise, but he didn't do it this time, I could tell. I looked over at Swikert, of course, and Swikert had no idea what was going on. And about that time, a red light had come on and said something to the fact that we had lost part of our electrical system.
I guess Tom Hanks does do a great Jim Lovell.
Okay, Houston, we've had a problem here.
This is Houston. Say again, please.
Houston, we've had a problem. We've had a main B bus undervolt.
Roger, main B undervolt.
Houston, we've had a main bus B undervolt.
Gene Kranz, ex-fighter pilot and one of NASA's most experienced flight directors, is on duty in Mission Control when the call comes in from the spacecraft.
This was what we would call, in our parlance, we'd call it a funny. It was something we didn't understand what had happened, and that is why the ground is down here. We would strip this data out, we'd look at it in recorders, we'd start figuring out what had caused the funny that we had seen. And I was sure that we would ultimately resolve the cause of this main B undervolt.
There he goes again.
Unfortunately, within moments, that funny starts to look more serious as warnings flash on screens throughout the room. Watching one of those screens is Cy Liebergott. It's his job to monitor the spacecraft's electrical system, and he can't believe what he's seeing.
I looked at my screens, and when I looked at my screens, the data said to me on the electrical power system display that I had lost the voltage on main bus B, which is one of the two main buses that feed the spacecraft, and I had lost two fuel cells. I had lost fuel cells 1 and 2. I looked at my environmental control system cryogenics display of data, and it said I had lost O2 tank 2, and I was losing O2 tank 1. I'm looking at not a single failure, not a double failure, not a triple failure, but I'm looking at a quadruple failure. There's no possible way that could happen in this spacecraft the way it was designed.
God, those consoles are so cool. I've always wanted one of those.
Liebergott is convinced if that much of the spacecraft had been lost, the crew would already be dead. He concludes he's looking at an instrument problem, not real damage to the ship.
Larry, you don't believe that O2 tank 1 pressure, do you?
No. Surge tank's good, catch eye. Manifold's good, ECS is good.
At this point, which is roughly 2 minutes in time, when I'm looking at all this, No, there's no panic. It's just, you fall back upon your simulation training and you start working the problem, and you work it the best you can.
From the moment the crew first reported the undervolt, Mission Control has assumed the problem is with the sensors.
This is giving me
monitoring
newfound
hardware
appreciation
like
for
the
Cy
oxygen
Liebergott, who I've never heard of before.
If Liebergott can prove this is so and figure out which ones have failed,
think about all the
a
people
lunar
involved in
landing
this
should still
process
be possible.
of making this mission
thinking
possible, and how
that
good
it
they
was
all have to
solvable.
be.
And then I was
How
coming
well
to the
trained, how
conclusion
quick
that
on their
I couldn't
feet,
solve
how
it.
knowledgeable about the things they're responsible for.
That wasn't a good feeling.
Can we review our status here, Cy, and see what we've got from a standpoint of status? What do you think we got in the spacecraft that's good?
Kranz is, the flight director is pressing me, and to the left of my console is the Capcom console. And Jack Lausman is the Capcom, and he's responsible for keeping the crew informed, and he's feeling that we're not as forthcoming as we can be. For a very good reason we're forthcoming. We're still trying to figure out what the hell is going on.
Okay, Ecom, I'm coming back to you. I assume you've called in your backup Ecom, if we can get some more brain power in this
We
thing?
got one here.
Roger.
I must tell you, I have never felt in all my life as alone as I felt. This is not to denigrate the support I was getting, but I didn't have the answers, and I'm sitting there and I felt alone.
So far, nothing the ground has suggested has helped. Jim Lovell takes another look outside.
As I looked back aft, I could see a gaseous substance escaping. It looks like a very thin haze at a very high rate of speed going out.
Something is leaking, venting out of the service module.
Yeah, I want
The
to make more
crew's
coffee,
spirits
but I
sink.
don't want to turn away from this
The
table.
main sense right then was I knew we lost the mission. We were going to abort and not even go into lunar orbit, much less land.
We never panicked, and people often ask me why we never panicked, and the fact is we could have bounced off the walls for about 10 minutes, and when we finished, we'd be back where we started from. Our heart rates, of course, went up. Naturally, they would, but we decided that we better just, keep on charging.
You did have to have nerves of steel
Looks to me, looking out
to be an
the
Apollo astronaut.
hatch, that we are venting something. Roger. We are venting something out into space.
Roger, we copy your venting.
Okay, let's everybody think of the kind of things we'd be venting. GNC, you got anything that looks abnormal in your system? Negative, Flight. How about you, Ecom? You see anything that could be venting?
Let me look at the system for you as far as the venting is concerned.
Okay, let's start scanning. Okay, now let's everybody keep cool. Let's solve the problem, but let's not make it any worse by guessing.
20 minutes into the crisis, Cy Liebergott comes to the conclusion what's venting is the crew's source of oxygen. He accepts what his instruments have been telling him all along. Oxygen tank 2 is dead. 2 of Odyssey's 3 fuel cells are dead. And oxygen tank 1, which is keeping the last fuel cell and the crew alive, is dying.
And that's when it hit. That's when I knew, because I accepted that the 2 fuel cells were probably dead, and that I didn't have oxygen tank number 2 anymore, and that the venting kind of tied into that. And then I'm looking at oxygen tank 1, which is all we had left to live on, and feed that final fuel cell, and I got less than 2 hours. That's when the panic hit, near panic. That's when I started at this. This is what you do when you're trying to reason with things.
Flight, I've got a feeling we've lost 2 fuel cells. I don't know why we've lost them.
You weren't kidding about the
It
death
doesn't all
group.
tag up, and it's not an instrumentation problem.
The problem is real, and time is running out.
If we were going to save any elements of the spacecraft, time was going by. Time, the consciousness of time, and the awareness of the time, and the frustration at going 5, 10, 15 minutes into this process, and still not being at the bottom of it, still seeing the life's blood escaping.
Without the electrical power, the command module was dead. Without the electrical power and without oxygen, the crew were dead. That's how we were. We were on the point of losing everybody and everything.
Oh, look, New York City.
From ABC News Space Headquarters, here is commentator Frank Reynolds.
There has been an emergency in the flight of Apollo 13. The prime objective of the mission, the landing on the moon, the further exploration of the lunar surface, has been canceled, and now the only consideration that remains is the safe return of the 3 astronauts.
The World Trade Center was still, hadn't even opened yet at that point. It was brand new.
The spacecraft's main engine. The explosion affected the spacecraft's main power system supplied by fuel cells. And that means that their oxygen supply is in jeopardy and their water supply is officially termed critical.
News bulletins quickly circle the globe, and people everywhere stop to consider the fate of 3 men who are drifting slowly away from the Earth, perhaps never to return.
When I heard about this explosion, first moment I said it is finished. It was a very bad situation for all people on our Earth. Every people said, Господи, God, help to him, help to them, help to them.
Marilyn Lovell, who had been at Mission Control 15 minutes before the crisis began, didn't learn anything had happened until much later that evening.
I received a call from Jerry Hammock, one of the recovery people, and he didn't know that I didn't know, and he just said, I just want you to know that every country has offered help and to bringing the men back down, you know, to wherever they would splash down. And I said, Jerry, what are you talking about? Have you been drinking? I mean, I didn't know what he was talking about at the moment. And then he just had told me that, he said, I guess, you know, I think he tried to make it sound a little simpler for me until someone could explain it to me, but he just told me they were having a problem with the fuel cells and what have you. And
my mother came upstairs, and she said, you know, there has been an accident, and everything's going to be fine. They're going to come back. They're not going to have a chance to go to the moon. And I remember feeling, my first feelings were for my father. You know, here he has been all this time, spending this time getting ready to go to the moon, and that dream wouldn't be met. And I was really upset for him.
I thought to myself, something's wrong. You know, my dad's never coming back. I'm never going to see my dad again. And, you know, he's basically, you know, I basically felt at that point that he was dead.
Across town, Mary Hayes, then 7 months pregnant, broke the news to her 3 children. Eldest daughter Margaret was then 13.
I was scared then because she was obviously upset about it. And she was trying to downplay it or not, you know, like it'll be okay, they'll get back. But you could just tell that it was worse than what she wanted to say.
It took 55 hours, 200,000 miles for the cracked wires in Tank 2 to become exposed. Once they were and the tank fan was turned on, a spark between them ignited a fire. The tank exploded. Only the vacuum of space kept it from destroying the ship. Now, with a gaping hole and vital oxygen leaking into space, Apollo 13 is still racing to the moon. An hour and a half into the crisis, a fresh team takes over in Mission Control. Replacing Cy Liebergott is Clint Burton, who observes the continuing deterioration of the command module.
It hurts to be the bearer of bad news time after time after time. Nonetheless, it fell my duty to be that bearer of bad news time after time after time.
Flatty-com, looks like we've got about 40 minutes left in that tank.
Okay, does it look like it's still going down?
That's affirmative, yes. Flatty-com, go ahead. Okay, we've got an update on
Clint
the time.
Burton was
Looks like
from
we've got
Texas.
about 18 minutes until we get down to the cutoff point. Flatty-com, temperature and the pressure correspond. So we're going to be there in 15 minutes.
In 15 minutes, the command module will no longer be able to support life. Fortunately for the crew of Apollo 13, their spacecraft has the ultimate in redundant systems, a second spacecraft, the lunar module. It has its own supplies of oxygen and electricity, enough to keep them alive for a while.
We found out that, that we'd probably lose all of our oxygen, knowing that we'd also lose our propulsion system, plus our electricity, of course. We decided that the only way we are going to save ourselves is use the LEM as a lifeboat.
Lovell and Hayes scramble through the tunnel into the LEM. Time is short, and they must activate power, guidance, and life support.
Go ahead. Okay,
Back in the command module, Jack Swigert starts shutting things down. This will preserve the capsule's tiny entry batteries, which the crew will need if and when they get back to Earth, because the command module is the only part of the ship that can survive re-entry. Shutting it down now means it's going to get very cold, and that worries the team on the ground.
You did have a sense that this was the little home that it takes to get the folks back, and we were turning off all the lights. As a matter of fact, it was going to get very, very cold, and everything in it was going to be refrigerator or freezer temperatures when we came back, and we didn't know what the effect of any of that was going to be on the hardware. For example, the guidance hardware that we would need when we got to the reentry portion of the flight.
It's going to get cold soon.
The guidance equipment in both the LEM and the command module was designed and built at MIT.
The guidance system is like your eyes and your foot on the throttle and your hands on the steering wheel. It's the information that gives you the ability to, if you will, steer from one point to another. And so the question was, would the instruments be able to take the cold temperature? Would we be able to get the IMU back up and running? And the first impact was one of, oh my God, these were answers we didn't have. And of course, there was a great concern. I mean, this was the national limelight. We had 3 astronauts up there, and some of us had worked with some of these astronauts in training. So there was both a personal relationship that some people had in the organization.
Yeah, this is a very...
And then the whole concern about, could we get them back?
Until they know more, Gilmore's team urges Mission Control to leave the command module's guidance heater turned on.
And thank you for the sub, DJ Walrino.
Lunny has his team figure out how much power that will use.
I'm going to keep watching this on my phone and go make another cup of coffee.
0.8 amps for the rest of the mission is going to cost me 64 amp hours. I can't afford that.
Lunny orders the guidance system heater turned off. All they can do is hope the system will work when the crew needs it. Moments later, all the scrambling puts at risk the critical guidance data transferred from the command module. It's Lunny's worst moment of the entire night.
In the course of transferring the crew over to the lunar module, there was a period during the flight where I had this sense of a real emotional low, like a stomach falling out, because I allowed the thrusters on the command service module to be shut down before we were fully configured on the lunar module side.
The thrusters are little jets that keep the spacecraft from drifting out of control. If the ship drifts too far, the guidance computer can lose track of where it is in space.
Jack gets the word to completely power it down, and we hadn't yet pressurized our reaction control system in the lunar module. Consequently, no one had control.
Apollo 13 starts to drift. It continues drifting for 2.5 long minutes. Finally, Lovell regains control of the ship, and the guidance system is okay. The situation is stable, but everyone at Mission Control knows Apollo 13 is still headed out to space, with only enough supplies for a couple of days.
I felt relieved when they got into the LEM and had systems in the LEM that would provide life support, attitude control, and everything they need, at least temporarily. Even though that milestone had been attained, it wasn't absolutely clear to me at that time that we could pull it all together. It was the beginning of a solution, as far as I was concerned. It was a good beginning after a nightmare.
2,000 miles from Houston in Bethpage, Long Island, the men and women who built the lunar module learn about the crisis and rush in to do what they can to help.
The LEM was a flimsy-looking, spidery type vehicle. The crew compartment had no amenities whatsoever, didn't even have seats. And the construction was just as lightweight as it could possibly be. For example, the skin of the crew compartment was about 12 thousandths of an inch thick aluminum. That would be like 3 layers of Reynolds wrap put together. You could easily, if you were careless, put your...
The HBO miniseries From the Earth to the Moon,
right through,
which was produced by Tom Hanks.
Wall.
It covers the whole Apollo program.
Kelly's task is to do an inventory of the LEM's consumables,
13.
like oxygen and electrical power.
One of my favorite episode of that series focuses on Tom Kelly
of the usual
and the team at Grumman who built the lunar module.
He concludes the LEM can keep them alive for 2 days.
It's a really fantastic episode.
More than that,
and
will present problems. And at this point,
a
no
great
one knows exactly
depiction
how long
of
it
what
will take to get 13 home.
What like building a complex product
should be
as a
there,
team of
but
engineers
my
is like.
feeling was one of questioning whether we really had what we thought we had.
So
in
it's
the
neat to
way
see
of
the real
life
Tom Kelly.
mission capability.
I've never seen footage of him talking about it.
3 hours into the crisis, Mission Control's focus shifts to the question of a course home. At this point, the most direct course may not be the best.
There were only 2 things really that you could do at that point. Being so close to the moon, you had to make up your mind, are we going to come back as rapidly as possible by using the engines on the command and service module or the lunar module? Or are we willing to take an extra 24 to 48 hours, let the thing be on a free return trajectory, let the moon bring us back from its gravitational pull, and can we keep the men alive safely for that length of time?
Turning around now would get the crew home in 2 days, but it's a high-risk strategy. It would use almost all the available fuel.
Is Apollo 13 to the Edge and Back. It's a documentary.
Neither Kranz nor Lunny is willing to do that. They decide to go around the moon. It's a choice that has a lot of appeal to the astronauts.
At least we would be on a course that would intercept the Earth in some manner. Maybe not so much that it would be survivable, but it would probably be a much better aspect than being a permanent monument to the space program, you know, going back and forth for, I don't know, eons.
Before firing the rocket, the spacecraft has to be pointed in exactly the right direction. But the LEM was never designed to work with the command and service module attached.
I went to try to control the vehicle, and when I pitched down, it went into some wild gyration because the center of gravity had moved way out. If you pitch down on the attitude controller, the spacecraft is supposed to pitch down. If you yaw right, the spacecraft is supposed to yaw right. And it wasn't doing that at all. I mean, it was doing something unusual, something that you had never seen before, something that you had to then try to correlate in your brain of, hey, if I do yaw right, I know that it's not going to do that, but it's going to do something else. I had to essentially learned to fly all over again.
Oh my God.
It was really starting from scratch.
Even as Lovell struggles to aim his ship, Mission Control sends up instructions for the burn, the first of its kind ever attempted in space.
Okay, Aquarius, you're ready to copy P30 maneuver pad.
So he's using the thrusters on the LEM, which are calibrated for just the LEM, to move the LEM with the CSM attached.
They
And he
wanted
just
to do
has
it
to
in
work
37
with
minutes.
that. That's wild.
We were a little bit more cautious up in the spacecraft. Don't forget, at the rate we are going now, the course that we were on was going to get us within 60 miles of the lunar surface. And you know, if we made the mistake of burning the wrong direction or a little bit like that, we could just plow right into the lunar surface.
Lovell asks for and gets an extra hour to enter the data and prepare the ship. Then, at 2:45 Tuesday morning, almost 6 hours after the accident, Apollo 13 takes its first step on its long journey home.
5 seconds before the burn, there's a little indication on the computer that says, do you really want to make this burn? The computer is asking us if we know what we're doing. I hit the proceed button, which says, okay, computer, you got it. At 0, the engine goes on, everything's working fine, it automatically shuts down. So there was a little bit of a high for us. I mean, everything's going wrong, and the command module is completely dead. And finally, we know that at least the brains in the lunar module are working so far, and we do get on what we thought was the free return burn.
Though still moving away from the Earth, 13 is now on a course for home. At its present speed, however, the astronauts will run out of power and water before they get back. With this in mind, Mission Control begins preparations for a second, bigger burn to be made after 13 loops around the Moon. This big burn will cut 24 hours off 13's trip home. Even this may not be enough. Merlin Merritt is the controller responsible for the LEM's electrical and life support systems.
After the first hour or so, as we began to gather the data, and we saw that those data points, heading down, it became obvious that within, an hour or so that we weren't going to make it at that rate.
Okay, I gotta go make that cup of coffee.
The biggest power consumer on the lunar module is the guidance system. Merritt feels it's essential to turn it off, but Lunny and Krantz feel just as strongly it has to stay up and running so the crew can position the ship before the big burn, which is 14 hours away.
There was never any question in my mind. I would have fought to the death to prevent anyone from trying to turn that platform down. That was essential to survival as water and air and electrical power.
We definitely weren't going to make it. I mean, we would not make it. So my position, of course, is to talk to the flight director. I said, Glenn, if we don't get this thing powered down, we're not going to make it. And of course, Glenn was receptive, and I said, well, let's see your data. And so we called up our plots, and once you looked at the data, and the data was coming in, it was obvious we weren't going to make it.
Merritt's data is real, but Lunny and Krantz have a different, if drastic, solution. They will leave the guidance on for now, but after the big burn, the crew will be ordered to turn off virtually everything and coast home in darkness and cold. Houston, Tuesday morning, 10 hours after the accident.
Let's start here.
At a hastily assembled press conference, Chris Kraft offers a cautious appraisal of 13's situation.
It appears at the present time that everything is under control and that we have a safe situation at the moment.
But Chris Kraft's idea of safety had been formed over years of risk-taking.
I'm used to people having difficulties, putting their lives on the line and making it happen and doing the best they can. And that was sort of my shell, if you want to call it that. That was where I came from. I'd seen men killed. I'd worked with men that got killed.
Like Gus Grissom, Ed White, and Roger Chaffee, the crew of Apollo 1. In 1967, just 3 years before Apollo 13, they had burned to death during a pre-launch exercise.
The fire occurred while the astronauts were in the spacecraft at T-minus 10 minutes prior to the planned simulated liftoff.
For Jim Lovell, who helped bury his friends, what was particularly tragic was that the Apollo 1 crew died on the ground.
If you're going to, what we say, buy the farm, you might as well do it what you're testing. Cracking up in an X-15 or testing a new airplane or, getting lost in space. Much better than going the way they went.
24 hours after its accident, 13, wounded and battered, approaches the moon. The big burn that will speed its return home is just an hour away. Because the lunar module has less computing power than an average car has today, Mission Control does all the calculations for the burn. Detailed instructions are radioed up to the crew, which has to copy them exactly before they lose radio contact behind the moon.
As the ground started to call up these procedures, I looked at Fred and Jack, and they weren't even listening to these procedures, but they had their cameras broken out, and they were looking at shutter speeds and aperture settings, and we're looking back at the moon. And I asked those guys, what are your plans here, gentlemen? And they said, well, we're going to take pictures when we go around the far side.
We knew that was the only time we were going to ever get to see the moon, so we kind of played tourist during that period.
Around the moon, Hayes and Swigert stay glued to the windows. But seeing the moon up close does less for Jim Lovell. He'd been here before, 14 months earlier, on Apollo 8. Apollo 8 was one of the great triumphs of manned spaceflight. It was the first time men had left the Earth to venture off into the galaxy. There were enormous risks. This was the first launch of a fully configured Saturn V, the first time NASA had relied on its deep space communications and tracking network. But the rewards were worth it. The crew of Apollo 8 became the first humans to see the far side of the moon.
For the last day on the way to the moon, the blunt end of our spacecraft was pointing towards the moon, so we never saw the moon as it got much bigger. I looked up in the windows and all I saw was black sky. That's all any of us saw until we rotated the spacecraft around about 180 degrees, and there, just 60 miles below, slowly slipping by, were the ancient old craters on the far side of the moon.
Apollo 8, Houston, what does the old moon look like from 60 miles, over?
Okay, Houston, the moon is essentially gray, no color, looks like plaster of Paris.
While the moon looked uninviting, the blue Earth was a marvel to behold.
And from the crew of Apollo 8, God bless all of you on the good Earth.
Apollo 8 was a triumph, and Jim Lovell had played a key role in its success. Landing on the moon was all that was left for him to accomplish in the space program. Now, as his crippled craft floats above the desolate moonscape, he knows it is not to be.
I wished on the moon for something I never knew. Wished on the moon for more than I ever knew. Sweeter rose, a softer
As the moon slips by, Jim Lovell searches for a little mountain he had seen from Apollo 8.
I had named that little mountain Mount Maryland after my wife. And of course, as we whipped around, that was one of the last things I saw. Sitting there was this little triangular mountain, Mount Maryland.
Half an hour later, Jim Lovell fires the lunar module's engine for the big burn. Now it is time to pay the piper. The crew has to turn off virtually everything in the spacecraft. The next 3 days will present a severe test of both crew and equipment.
We knew early in the game that the powered down levels would approach survival of the crew and the survival of the system. The systems would get so cold that we were worried that possibly the batteries might freeze, the propellant in the command and service module lines would freeze. There was a good chance we would get the combined spacecraft home, but when we brought up the command and service module, it would be non-functional. It was the end of the road.
Without power, life in the lunar module becomes grim.
It gradually cooled on down to close to freezing in the command module. In some areas below freezing because water tanks, for instance, froze. And I'd say 40 or slightly below in the limb.
We discussed dragging out our spacesuits, but then we thought more about it because they were, rubberized inside, and that our perspiration would then be in there, and we'd actually be in worse condition.
Closest analog would be if you're lost out in the woods on a hunting trip, and a cold front came through, and you're stuck out there for 4 days without a jacket.
Fred and I dragged out our lunar boots and put them on, and Jack just had to suffer, as all command module pilots do.
The LEM had no means of heating water. Most of the food packs of that dry food mixed with cold water doesn't mix very well and doesn't taste even less well.
Jack Swigert died in 1982. That's why he's not interviewed in this.
So you have to remember that the lunar module was designed for 2 guys. We got 3 guys in there right now, and every time that I moved, it rattled Jack, and Jack rattled Fred, and then it reverberated back again, so we were going back and forth. So it got to be a miserable existence.
The tension and the cold make it almost impossible to sleep. And as if that weren't enough, there are new indignities for the crew. The ground asks them to stop dumping their urine overboard.
It was affecting their Doppler analysis of our trajectory and the flight path. And the real misunderstanding was, I'm sure they meant it in the sense of a certain length of time where they could get some tracking time, and we took it to really mean forever. So that put us on a search within the vehicles now to hunt virtually every container that made sense now to store the urine on board.
His spaceship.
At one point in the LEM, I was hunting in one of the storage areas with the LEM were nothing but canvas covers over things and looking for food, if I recall. And I stumbled onto a little package that had been left in there from the family of pictures of the family that really was meant to be found or opened when we were on the lunar surface. So that, it was a feeling of, I hope someday I get to see them again.
The crisis on Apollo 13 is now into its 2nd day. There's hardly a place on the planet that isn't aware of the astronaut's plight, or a person who isn't moved by the possibility that another human being might be lost in space.
If I may be serious for one moment and ask the entire audience for a moment of prayer for the crewmen of the Apollo 13. We'll hold silence for a moment, please.
Special prayers are offered. From the Vatican to the Wailing Wall.
Would you like to say the Our Father for the astronauts right now? Yes. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name.
For the astronauts' families, it's a time of hope and dread.
I didn't ask a lot of questions. I just stood in the background and listened. And when I did ask questions. They were just answered, you know, things are fine. They're really working on bringing them home.
Everybody was very careful not to have the radios or the televisions on. I mean, I was upset I couldn't go to school, and then, like I said, it just, there was absolutely, we didn't hear any of that, because the news a lot of them were saying they're not getting back.
I never did go back to mission control, no. I think at one point when one of the doctors thought maybe that I could come over and talk Jim into getting some rest because he never did go to sleep, and I said there was no way that I could do that because I would just get over there and I'd probably break down in front of the world and everyone. So I decided that I couldn't do that, and I knew that he could do what he had to do himself.
She was very nervous, very upset, probably never stopped smoking, didn't sleep, and just really was, as far as, you know, like I said, you know, she didn't want to tell me what was going on. She didn't want to address it because she didn't want to believe it herself.
Earlier in the day on Tuesday, Mission Control had recognized another life-threatening problem. Deadly CO2 is accumulating in the lunar module.
CO2 in high concentrations in the atmosphere can be poisonous and can cause dizziness, headache, and existing long enough and a high enough level can even cause death. So we had to do something about that.
The LEM is running out of CO2 filters. The command module has plenty, but there is a problem.
The problem was that we had these square canisters. And in the lunar module, the receptacle in which you put the CO2 filters was round because the lunar module used round canisters or filters instead of square ones. So our problem was, how do we connect this square canister to a system that will only accept round filters?
Smiley's team has to find a solution that uses materials the crew has on board, like the cardboard covers from their flight manuals, plastic bags from their spacesuits, and lots of duct tape. By early Wednesday, they have a prototype. It's not the sort of thing NASA usually builds. It takes a while just to figure out how to describe it to the crew up in space. It then takes the crew a tense 2 hours to find and assemble all the pieces. It's a flimsy-looking contraption, but it will rid the cabin of CO2.
The part I remember most
One
from the
deadly
movie Apollo
problem
13
is put to rest.
is the process of how they have to
As soon as we
just
put it
figure out how
together
to
and hooked it up
describe
to the
this,
environmental
like
system, the
step-by-step
pressure went
instructions
way
to
down
have
and
the
we
crew
knew that this thing
collect
had
all the
worked.
parts and build it themselves. It's a great
For the next 24 hours,
depiction of the
crew can do
challenges and the
nothing to help
process of
themselves.
technical writing
They must simply
and like written
endure
communication
the
in
cold
general.
and discomfort. Their concern with the storage of urine and the shortage of water has led them to drink less and less.
Hey, Josh E.D., how you
This
doing?
takes a toll. They're all dehydrated, and Fred Hayes develops a bladder infection. By late Wednesday, he's starting to drag, and by Thursday, he can barely stop shivering.
And finally, it dawned on me that how sick he was. I ended up putting my body around, wrapped him around him to try to keep him warm because he was visibly shaking, with the chills.
2 days of cold and misery has left the crew exhausted and drained. Apollo 13 is still more than 24 hours from splashdown, and these hours promise to be some of the most stressful.
Was Fred
of the
Hayes the
entire
first
flight.
person, the first human being to get a UTI in space?
You could almost feel them tailing off from a standpoint of their performance, but I never really understood how desperately cold it was out there and how those people were very close to freezing.
For the past 3 days, the recovery team has been preparing for splashdown in the Pacific. Even if 13 survives re-entry, no one can be sure where it will come down. It could land anywhere in an area 500 miles by 250 miles.
to find it. And you've got C-130 aircraft at high altitude in the area that have a direction finding capability. Closer in, on board the carrier, we have a helicopter squadron, which all has been configured with special antennas to do some direction finding as well. As long as we got some electronic bearings, I think we'd have been all right.
I didn't know there was an Apollo 13.
That's assuming the
pinball
capsule
game.
lands upright in the water and that its radio beacons are working. But it's quite possible 13 will have no power for its beacons. In that case, it will be almost impossible to find.
Basically, even if you were in a helicopter like a quarter-mile away from the spacecraft and it was inverted, you had no electronic aids and you couldn't see anything. You really, if there were any white caps whatsoever, you couldn't see the spacecraft. It was that invisible out in the ocean.
Re-entry is now less than a day away. At Mission Control, the spotlight is on the first row of consoles, the trench. That's where the guidance officers work. They're worried about 13's trajectory. Something is forcing the spacecraft off course. This could have disastrous consequences.
Coming home from the moon, you had to come in and hit the atmosphere in a re-entry corridor that was only 2 degrees wide, a pie-shaped wedge. Not any less than 5.5 degrees, not any greater than 7.5 degrees. You had to come down that 2-degree wedge. If you came in too shallow, you'd skip out, like skipping a stone on water. If you came in too steep, well, that sudden deceleration would make you a fiery meteor over the sky for a few brief seconds. We were coming in too shallow.
What is happening that we don't understand?
I really love
Is it something
Jim Lovell's deadpan.
in our computational processors? Is it something associated with the platform alignments we did? Is there something associated with maneuver execution? Why? It was one of those lurkers that you always wonder if it's going to come up and bite you at the wrong time. If there's something that we've overlooked, and here we had zero margin for error. We could not overlook anything, and therefore we had to have an explanation for everything that was happening.
But the trench has no explanations. They don't know why the trajectory is shallowing, but they do know, with only hours before re-entry, they have to do something to correct it. With some trepidation, the trench orders a course correction. With the guidance computers shut off, this promises to be a real test of the astronaut's skill. The crew will have to keep the Earth centered in the lunar module windows.
I told Jack, I said, you're going to tell us exactly when to start the burn, and you'll time it with your wristwatch. And I told Fred, I said, you have a backup attitude controller. I have a primary. I know that when that engine goes on, that I'll never be able to keep the Earth in the window by myself, because these are what we call three attitude controllers in pitch and roll and yaw. I said, you take your attitude controller and keep the Earth from going back and forth too much. I'll take my attitude controller and keep the Earth from going up and down too much. He said, fine. And then over on the side, I had a couple of buttons. One said start and one said stop. These were buttons that directly connected the battery to the descent engine. The one and only time they were ever used in the Apollo program to really start the engine just by direct electrical linkage.
He's saying
at the
attitude.
proper time, Jack said start. I hit the start button. The engine went on. I think we only had it for about 10% thrust, something like that. 14 seconds later, Jack said stop. I hit the stop button. And in between that time, we juggled the Earth, up and down and sideways. And then, of course, we waited.
They wait for Mission Control to collect enough tracking data to find out whether their ship, slowly spinning to equalize exposure to the sun, is back on course. With 13 now so close to home, the time is fast approaching when the crew will have to get back in the frozen command module and try to restart it. Before they can, Mission Control has to devise and radio up a set of instructions, a checklist. A team led by 27-year-old John Aaron has spent the past 4 days working on one. trying to figure out how to start the command module and how to make the limited battery power on board last for the rest of the flight.
How do you go in with these little entry batteries, which are just designed to do 45 minutes worth of business, and do something that even our initial estimates has got to take 5 or 6 hours? The initial impression by the team, in fact, we had a bunch of people in the room and we were going around doing a combination of engineering and commiserating. You know, it was easy to jump to the conclusion that maybe this was impossible. Everybody wanted power. The propulsion guys wanted power. The guidance guys wanted power. The attitude guys, I mean, everybody wants power. It was a fundamental constraint.
10 hours before projected splashdown, Aaron and his team are still working on a detailed checklist that will tell the crew which switch to throw and when. They have checked, rechecked, and run computer simulations and are still not sure it will work.
So I'm calling down and saying, I would certainly like to have that checklist up here because I knew it was going to be a very long thing and we are going to have to copy down and Schweikert was going to have to be doing all this sort of stuff. And I wanted to maybe to get it up and maybe have a couple dry runs and, you know, things like that. And then, of course, you know, by this time they're having a lot more confidence in our survival, which I thought was kind of nice. And they said they'd have it up by Saturday. We were going to be back there by Friday. You know, could you please, you know, pretty please send up the checklist so my rookie, you know, command module pilot could go through it and start throwing the switches.
On Friday morning, 4 a.m., the command module startup checklist is finally ready. Apollo 13 is now less than 9 hours from re-entry. It's hurtling toward the Earth at 20,000 miles per hour. It takes Schweikert 2 hours, 40,000 miles, to write down all the detailed instructions. He uses the backs of notebooks and every scrap of paper the crew can find. 6 hours before re-entry, Schweikert climbs back into the command module and starts throwing switches. Even now, no one knows whether it will start.
We had froze that mothership for, 4 days beyond its design limits because it wasn't meant to be frozen, turned off and frozen, literally. So there was still, in my mind, concern about the condition of the capsule. You know, it ain't over till it's over.
To everyone's immense relief, the command module flickers back to life. But there's no time to celebrate. Every moment counts. Everyone is cold and exhausted. Hayes's fever has increased, but at this point, adrenaline takes over.
It was the big ball game sort of sense, and I was ready to do what I had to do. When you're in that situation, you don't sense your own condition.
First, the crew has to get rid of the dead service module. Lovell and Hayes are still in the LEM. Lovell worries his rookie command module pilot might jettison the wrong part of the spacecraft.
I'm in the lunar module with a camera, and I tell Jack, not once, not twice, but 3 times, I said, Jack, we're jettisoning the service module, not the lunar module. Don't jettison the lunar module. You know, put some tape over that switch.
Once the service module is cut loose, the crew will get its first and only chance to see what happened to it.
He jettisons the service module, then I pull the command module and the lunar module together away, and then maneuver a little bit to see if I can see this service module as it sort of just drifts away from us. And sure enough, it comes into view, and as it rotates very slowly, one whole side of that panel was blown off.
Right by the high gate antenna, the whole panel is blown out, almost from the base to the engine. Copy that. It's really a mess. Man, that's unbelievable.
We were actually sort of excited to see this thing, to find out, to give us some evidence of what really went wrong. You know, because you always have that thing in the back of your mind, well, gee, maybe Did I screw up someplace along the line to cause this all to happen? I mean, you have to bring home some evidence saying, hey, really, folks, it wasn't my fault. Take a look at this picture. You know, something happened back there and I wasn't back there.
Hearing how much damage has been done to the service module leaves everyone in Mission Control with the same worry. Is 13's heat shield, which was just above the explosion, still intact?
Any penetration of the heat shield would have very possibly allowed a heat leak, plasma leak, and eventually a burn through during the process of entry. There wasn't anything about this entire mission that was a free ride.
If the heat shield was damaged,
Re-entry is now 50 minutes away.
there would really be nothing
It's
they could
time
do
for
about
Lovell
it.
and Hayes to leave the lifeboat. They join Swigert in the command module, lock the tunnel behind them, and wait for the order to jettison the LEM.
Odyssey Houston, we just had a formal go for LEMjet at your convenience, over.
Okay, thanks, Joe. Left jettison.
Okay, copy that. Farewell, Aquarius, and we thank you.
She sure was a good ship.
Well, I was sad to see it go. That if I could have brought it back, I'd like to put it up in my backyard.
The command module is now on its own. To the dismay of everyone, it's still drifting off course. The guidance controllers must decide immediately what to do. They order a minor correction, guessing that either the LEM or the service module has been the cause of 13's drift. Did they guess right? They'll know when the rest of the world does, when and if they see Apollo 13's parachutes.
I know all of us here want to thank all you guys down there for the very fine job you did. That's a firm, Joe.
Tell you, we all had a good time doing it.
You have a good bedside manner.
That's the nicest thing anybody's ever said.
13 is traveling 24,000 miles an hour when it enters the Earth's atmosphere. 19 seconds later, radio contact is lost as the craft is enveloped in flame. Blackout is expected to last 3 minutes.
We're now coming to the moment, the last moments of Apollo 13 as it comes in, as it begins its re-entry. The best thing we can do now is just to listen and hope.
And we'll only know whether or not that heat shield was damaged by the explosion 3 days ago. When they come out of radio blackout, all anybody can do now is cross their fingers. Just about now, they should be going through the moment of maximum heat.
30 seconds to go for blackout.
Blackout is one of those times when there's nothing we can do, and seconds become minutes, and minutes become hours, and if you haven't heard, boy, it gets you right in the stomach.
Three minutes come and go, and there's no word.
made it.
Great circle.
All 3 shoots out.
You're absolutely uptight, tense, on the edge for 4 days, and then to see that wonderful sight of the vehicle lumbering down through the atmosphere, hanging on chutes. It's just, well, I'll never forget it.
I still feel the emotions within my body that will probably never, ever leave me, because I didn't know for 4 days if I was a wife or a widow.
About the time that you see shoots, you'll see the cheering and the American flags come out. And then it's again tradition that you wait until the crew gets in the carrier deck, at which time cigars and the world map lights up. And shit. It was neat.
Oh my God. Sorry, that was very poor timing for my YouTube thumbnail, Ghost. And this very emotional moment with Gene Kranz. Let's take that again. I want the full emotional impact of that moment.
At which time cigars and the world map lights up. And shit. It was neat.
Guys have worked hard. Guys worked hard to bring this one home.
It certainly was neat.
Jim Lovell, Fred Hayes, and Jack Swigert never got another chance to walk on the moon.
Come on out here and give me a big Navy salute. Look at this. Off the ground, on the floor.
But 8 other Americans did journey to the lunar surface.
Hippity-hoppity, hippity-hoppity, hippity-hopping over hill and dale. I was strolling on the moon.
The last of them blasted off from the moon over 20 years ago. Still, the Apollo legacy lives on. The quest to set foot on another
Over
planet
40 years ago now.
was one of history's greatest adventures, and people all over the world shared in the excitement. But Apollo 8, 11, and 13...
Shit, over 50 years ago.
More. They brought the world together in a way we never expected. Venturing away from the Earth, we learned a fundamental and enduring truth. Earth is our only home.
We had visited a very alien and very hostile and lifeless planet. And we saw the Earth as the only home that we know of within our near space capable of supporting life. And we recognized the absolute necessity to protect and nurture and take care of this environment.
Yay, that was very good. That was an excellent tape. Okay, Mighty John Glenn. Will there be Space in a Spaceship by the Maguire sisters? Whew. All right, that was great. Sorry, I had to find Will There Be Space in a Spaceship for a Girl and Boy to Make Love? Which is apparently an extremely obscure song. Okay. I've got time for one more tape, because I have to go get I have to go to the barbershop. But we could do something that's about 30 minutes. Perhaps an Eyewitness, or here, let me just sort by runtime. What is Dave? Do we have Dave? Dave. Yeah, but there's no more Dave. We had there goes the train and there goes the spaceship. Those are our only Daves, I think. Let's see. Yeah, we ran out of Dave. We could do, let's see. We could do Eyewitness, or we could do Kid Songs, or we could do Dolphin Adventures. I guess we already did the Kitty Cats. I don't care though. I don't need to balance the genre mix of every stream perfectly. Let's pull. I'm going to pull. Tape. Kid Songs. Eyewitness. 1 minute. It's neck and neck. Get your votes in. Eyewitness is ahead, but only by a few. If we do, let's see. I'll take Martin Sheen over the Biggles. Yeah, that is a good policy. Eyewitness is winning. Okay. Well, I'm going to go get Eyewitness Dinosaur, and if enough people vote for Kid Songs before I get back, we'll do Kid Songs. But the poll is in fact ending as we speak, and it's Eyewitness. Alright, hooray. Dinosaur, narrated by Martin Sheen. Not rewound, damn it. Let's not do Dinosaur. Let's do, people are excited for Dinosaur. Well, that's fine, we can rewind it. Be right back. Leica absolutely must and will join us for Eyewitness Dog. Eyewitness Dinosaur is rewinding. I did go to the post office the other day and get a couple of tapes that have been sent in, including Eyewitness Skeleton and Eyewitness one other one. Whichever it was, I forget now, but that's all of the... I've successfully received all of the Eyewitness that has been sent in. So thank you for those. And we'll pop this one out of the rewinder momentarily. Come on. So close. That's fine. Good question, Trill. How many tapes? But yes. Yes, you can send in tapes, Trill. You do have the golden ticket after all. Japan had 2 tapes. I did not bring an entire empty suitcase, and I didn't put that much effort into finding VHS tapes. They were surprisingly hard to track down. Okay, Eyewitness, Dinosaur. Bingo winner. Who won the bingo? Congrats on winning bingo. Sage of
Tyrannosaurus
Stars.
rex,
Points granted.
the largest meat eater ever to walk the earth. One of the hundreds of dinosaurs that have been reconstructed and, well, not exactly brought back to life. Dinosaurs only come back to life in the movies, and they'd been dead for 64 million years before humans appeared on Earth, or on the menu. If anything, it's been the human imagination that's fed on dinosaurs, with taste ranging from green and comic to the global and serious game of paleontology. Since the first dinosaur fossils were identified almost 200 years ago, it's been science that's fueled science fiction. The evidence unearthed by paleontology, the study of fossils and ancient life forms, has given new life to the dinosaur and set them roaming across the landscapes of our imagination. And with a new fossil being discovered about every 7 weeks, our knowledge of dinosaurs is growing by leaps and bounds. Where did the name
Eyewitness
dinosaur come from?
It's based on a
Sir
book
Richard
series.
Owen wrote into history when he declared
But
that
it's
the
become a
fossils
golden
of
VCR
giant
favorite.
animals being discovered in England in the early 1800s should be called Dinosauria, meaning terrible lizards. Why lizards? We know dinosaurs were similar to reptiles because fossils have revealed that they had scaly skin and laid eggs. It's the dinosaur body plan which sets them apart from reptiles.
I hope we get a
250
behind-the-scenes
million
segment
years
about
ago,
this
the reptile
claymation
design
dinosaur
of the
that's made
day
out of
incorporated
Nickelodeon
the
gack.
short, sprawling legs of the lizard and the short, bent-kneed legs of ancient crocodiles. Dinosaurs evolved because of a breakthrough in leg design. Dinosaur legs were longer and tucked under the body, and this breakthrough came in both 4- and 2-legged models. Dinosaurs could not only stand up, they could run faster than anything else around. This ability to pursue or escape pursuit was a major factor in the dinosaur's success. T-Rex enjoyed its success by eating its own weight in meat every week. That's 7 tons, or the equivalent of 12 cows.
I can see how that would make it hard to
found
survive
wasn't
after like a
called
global
Tyrannosaurus
catastrophe
Rex.
that kills
When
all the
Barnum
meat.
Brown, known as Mr. Bones because he found so many dinosaurs, dug up the first T-Rex in 1900, he identified it as a large meat eater and called it Dinosaurus imperiosus. But Dinosaurus imperiosus, an overnight sensation in the world of paleontology, would soon change its name to something more befitting the largest meat eater ever to kill for a living. Tyrannosaurus rex, literally tyrant lizard king.
Bony Buddy, Mr. Bones.
People have been finding dinosaur bones all over the world for 2,000 years. People like the Chinese, who've always called them dragons. The first known dinosaur extinction theory is attributed to the 3rd century writer Chang Qiu, who explained the mystery of dinosaur bones by writing, "A dragon ascended a mountain and went directly to the gate of heaven. The gate being locked, the dragon fell back to earth and died at this spot. Later, it sank into the earth." Although we may never be able to completely answer the why of dinosaur extinction, we do know the when. "225 million years ago, when dinosaurs first appeared, the Earth was a very different place. All the land was joined together in one supercontinent called Pangaea. For the next 160 million years, dinosaurs dominated the Earth. To get an idea of this immense timescale, imagine a book 225 pages long, each page equal to 1 million years. Dinosaurs would be the main characters for the first 160 pages. Mammals would take over for the last third of the book. Humans wouldn't appear until the top of the last page, 1 million years ago.
I don't like his
And
random
it wouldn't have
patches
been
of
until the
leopard
bottom
print.
of the last page that we even knew dinosaurs existed. When the second T-Rex was found in 1902, a large foreleg found nearby was believed to belong to it. It wasn't until 88 years later in 1990, when the 10th T-Rex was excavated, that paleontologists realized Mr. Bones got it wrong. It wasn't the first mistake made in piecing together a dinosaur. And it won't be the last. When the freshest evidence to be found has been dead for 65 million years, it's no wonder paleontology has a long tradition of getting things wrong. One of the first bloopers
Paleontologists.
occurred in England in 1820.
The fuck-ups of
Dr. Kiddy
science.
Mantell found some fossilized teeth and excavated Iguanodon, named after the modern-day iguana. Iguanodon might be considered the beginning of dinomania. It was such a hit with the English public that a full-scale model was built in Crystal Palace Park. Before the model was finished, a dinner party was held inside it for 20 people. The diners are long gone, but the Iguanodon model is still there, a monument to the pitfalls of paleontology.
All the people that ate dinner
What
inside of
Mantell
that
assumed to be a
dinosaur
nose
sculpture
horn turned out to be a thumb
are
spike
dead
on
now.
the Iguanodon's multi-purpose hand.
Thank you.
What still remains a mystery
Mark
is
Sheen.
where, broken and buried under New York's Central Park, are two similar statues. Maybe someday they'll be found by an urban paleontologist. But Mantell's Iguanodon is just one example from over 1,000 dinosaur finds scattered across all the continents, a tiny fraction of the billions of dinosaurs that must have lived during the 160 million year
If a T-Rex could wear
period known
sunglasses,
as the Mesozoic era.
would it wear them
What
like
was
this?
it like then? At the beginning of the Mesozoic era, called the Triassic period, when dinosaurs first evolved, low shrubbery fern-like plants dominated the landscape.
It's interesting how every Eyewitness tape seems to have a slightly different vibe in
Next
the way that it's
came the
presented.
Jurassic period, when huge coniferous forests
This
and
just seems
groves
like
of
they're trying to get Martin Sheen to
supported the
cram as
heyday
many dinosaur
of the
facts
plant-eating
into 30 minutes
dinosaurs.
as possible.
Then came the Cretaceous period, when the western part of North America was covered with extensive rivers, deltas, swamps, and marshes, when large herds of grazing dinosaurs were hunted by a smaller number of meat eaters. Flowering plants had just begun to appear. And the air
Dinosaur
was thick
expert Martin Sheen.
with T-Rex breath. Although no one claims that T-Rex could kill with its breath, some believe the bacteria level was so high in its mouth that T-Rex had only to deliver one septic bite, then wait until its prey was brought down by the ensuing infection. Not so far-fetched when you consider the Komodo dragon, the largest living lizard, which uses such a septic bite when hunting. In 1907, Barnum Brown found the third T-Rex. With 8-inch teeth and a 4-foot-long skull, it was the most complete T-Rex to date and would remain the largest found for the next 60 years.
They're really compositing in a lot of dinosaur imagery. They're going hard and fast with the dinosaurs.
Even with the help of dynamite, it took 3 summers to dig it out.
Dynamite, hit it. Oh.
Today, excavation is a much more painstaking and exact science. Although plaster jackets are still used to protect the fossils during transport. The use of modern heavy equipment has greatly sped up excavation and transfer to the lab. A big help when the block of stone containing a perfectly preserved hadrosaur tail can be 2 yards of solid rock. Ironically, much of the heavy equipment we use today could be considered the descendants of the very first heavy equipment, dinosaurs. For many dinosaurs were massively powerful creatures. The first front loaders were the theropods, big meat-eating dinosaurs who used their powerful necks and huge jaws to rip giant chunks of meat off a kill. Modern machinery has similar claws to rip through the earth. The first cranes were the sauropods, big plant-eating dinosaurs that used their long necks to go where no herbivore had ever gone.
I didn't expect to get mighty machines in my Eyewitness
Although
today.
the bus-sized Stegosaurus was a gentle vegetarian, few meat-eaters wanted to tangle with its spiked tail.
The Stegosaurus was the bus of nature. Got it.
Tails were used for much more than defense. Long-necked dinosaurs were counterbalanced like today's suspension bridges, with long tails balancing their equally long necks. The longest dinosaur neck found to date measures 33 feet. Even in 2-legged dinosaurs, the tail served as a balancing mechanism to counterweight various body builds and head designs. From the smallest baby hadrosaur, less than a yard in length, to the 10-foot-long meat-eating Albertosaurus. Balance was crucial when several tons of dinosaur decided to run. Imagine a multi-ton ostrich, and you begin to get an idea of how the swiftest of dinosaur predators might have moved. But how fast were they? Paleontologists can calculate the answers from fossilized footprints called trace fossils. The race to clock T-Rex's top speed remains the subject of great debate. Opinions range from as slow as 15 miles an hour to as fast as 40 miles an hour. It's certainly safe to say that a man would be lucky to finish the race. Fortunately for humans, the only dinosaur bite we'll ever deal with is its overbite. The largest on record belongs to T-Rex number 4, found in 1966. The study of dentition, or the shape, size, and wear of teeth, tells us more about feeding habits than anything else, and dinosaurs have left us great dental records. Most plant-eating or herbivorous dinosaurs, such as this Triceratops, had cheek teeth for breaking down coarse vegetation before it was swallowed. The record for the most teeth belongs to Edmontosaurus, also known as the tooth fairy's nightmare. Over 1,000 teeth acted like self-sharpening vegetable graters. The largest herbivores, such as Diplodocus and Brachiosaurus, had peg-shaped teeth.
This is
much
my
like
nightmare.
A horse, which they used like rakes to strip leaves and needles off trees. Many of them didn't chew their food. They swallowed it whole. And what about the meat eaters who fed on these herbivores? From the Albertosaurus to the crocodile-like Baryonyx, most meat eaters, or carnivores, had dagger-like teeth. And many, such as T-Rex, had teeth with serrations, like those on a steak knife, to help rip meat off the bone.
Please enlarge adorable chickies. Sorry, I'm covering up the bloody dinosaur stop-motion battle.
But T-Rex's bark might have been worse than his bite. Were the biggest carnivores to walk the earth killers, or just scavengers? The best evidence that they hunted live prey is in fossilized footprints of one large theropod stalking a sauropod herd. This kind of evidence also supports the theory that large herds of grazing dinosaurs were hunted by a smaller number of predators, making the Mesozoic scene not unlike the African savanna of today.
Oh, he's so cute. He's so chunky.
With sickle-like claws on its hind legs, Deinonychus, or Terrible Claw, was the dinosaur equivalent of pack-hunting wild dogs, or wolves. From a find in Montana, we know that the 150-pound Deinonychus hunted down live prey. The scene was reconstructed using hard evidence from the site. A Deinonychus pack brought down a Tyrannosaurus, but not without paying a price. Before succumbing, the Tyrannosaurus killed 4 of its attackers. Similar finds have revealed pack-hunting raptors at the site of other kills. The carnivorous dinosaurs no longer hunt, but are now hunted themselves by a human pack of fossil hounds. In 1981, 3 Canadian high school students found the next T-Rex, Black Beauty, named after the color of its fossilized bone. Only after it was cleaned in the lab did anyone realize how complete this 5-foot-long skull was. When a fossil is brought to the lab, first the plaster casing is removed. Then it's often given an acid bath to remove the last of the stone covering the fossilized bone. This process can take months or even years. But not all dinosaurs were as big as T-Rex. Many of them were in fact quite small. As small as a bird. And they came in all shapes and sizes. With the heavyweight title going to Brachiosaurus, tipping the scales at 77 tons. That's heavier than 2 Boeing 737s. Although the largest dinosaurs have traditionally played the leading roles in popular entertainment,
it's the
dinos. Smaller dinosaurs that have starred in the debate over dinosaur descendants. Compsognathus and Coelophysis have similar skeletons to Archaeopteryx, the first bird. This missing link supports the theory that modern birds are the nearest living relatives of small, meat-eating dinosaurs. And the nearest relatives of large dinosaurs like baryonyx are crocodiles. The 9th T-Rex was found in 1987 and provided the first known tip of the tail vertebrae. All the bones of T-Rex had now been found except for those of its mysteriously shriveled forelimbs. The same area in North America that produced 8 of the 10 known T-Rexes to date produced a find that would radically change our view of dinosaur family life. A massive bone bed was discovered, spread over several miles and estimated to contain the remains of a dinosaur herd 10,000 strong. Proof that dinosaur herds once roamed the American West like the buffalo of a more recent era. The most significant find was the nesting grounds. Much like present-day seabirds, which nest in colonies, these
Sorry, I had to post
called
Chunkosaurus
also
in the
nested
Discord.
in groups. The eggs were laid in circular nests
Because I love
6
them too
feet
much.
across, containing 20 to 25 7-inch eggs. They belonged to several Maiasaura, or good mother lizards, who shared nesting, feeding, and babysitting duties once the young were hatched. We know the hatchlings stayed in the nest and were fed by their parents because the nests were filled with trampled shells.
That's so tiny. Like little baby Metroids. This reminds me of Alien.
Sometimes dinosaur eggs provided food for others. Oviraptors, literally egg thieves, were bird-like dinosaurs that liked their eggs raw. Like many modern-day birds and reptiles, hadrosaurs had to guard their nests against predators. Dinosaurs probably also shared another trait with today's birds and
What's our
reptiles.
claymation dinosaur
They
friend?
used sound to communicate with their young. And some dinosaurs were louder than others. Edmontosaurus had an inflatable nasal sac which amplified its call, much like many animals living today. Dinosaur headgear was also used for a less harmonious activity. Headbutting was probably the most popular way of resolving differences over territory or potential mates. This tradition is still alive and well in many animals today. In fact, it's now believed that Triceratops, with its 3 horns and massive
Some
frill,
good Tai Chi form.
saw more action going head-to-head with other Triceratops than it did in the popular image of a one-on-one with T-Rex. Another long-held belief was shattered when the 10th T-Rex was excavated by John Horner in 1990. His fossil, 90% complete, was the first to produce a complete forelimb. The notion that T-Rex had 3 fingers, accepted since 1902, was false. T-Rex only had 2.
200
But
bits
in
from
the
Tech
serious
Opsol,
game
thank
of
you. Ghost
paleontology,
of a dinosaur
much
playing a
mystery
saxophone,
still
as it's
remains,
called to a crowd
and
of other
opposing
dinosaurs.
theories vie for the answers. Were
crowd.
dinosaurs cold-blooded like reptiles or warm-blooded like birds? It's the kind of question paleontologists love to argue long into the night. Those who contend dinosaurs were warm-blooded point to fossils found as far north as Alaska and northern Canada. They say dinosaurs must have been warm-blooded because cold-blooded animals, at the mercy of external temperatures, couldn't have lived in such cold. Warm-blooded theorists also contend that dinosaurs must have had the 4-chambered, double-pumped heart of today's mammals to supply them with enough blood pressure to pump blood up their long necks to their heads. The heart of a cold-blooded animal couldn't have pumped enough blood to their brains, and they would have been constantly fainting. But the strongest evidence for dinosaurs being warm-blooded is that their bones are honeycombed with holes. proof of a network of blood vessels as complex, if not more complex, than living mammals. Those who contend that dinosaurs were cold-blooded say all this evidence is full of holes. They claim dinosaurs living in the cold north were mobile enough to head south for the winter, and they gleefully point to the crocodile, which has a 4-chambered heart, yet is still cold-blooded. They also suggest that a dinosaur's large size would have allowed it to store a great amount of heat. Warm-blooded, cold-blooded. Given the lack of evidence, the real answer may never come to light. One thing paleontologists have few arguments about is how dinosaur muscle lay on the bone. They can read the bones by looking at the ridges of smooth patches and grooves, and determine how muscle, tendons, nerves, and blood vessels were arranged. However, laying skin over the muscle is more a matter of guesswork. From fossilized skin impressions, we know that dinosaur skin was much like that of modern reptiles, scaly, tough, and waterproof, and probably came in the same variety of colors. To break up the outline of the body, some may have had stripes. Since blending in was important, polka dots were unlikely. But armor was very popular. The toughest armor belonged to ankylosaurs. And yet, even armor couldn't protect the
Oh my God, it's another train.
Dinosaurs from extinction. The greatest mystery of the dinosaurs is the whodunit of their extinction. There are many
200 bits from Slick to
One
Ghost of an
hope that
anthropomorphic dinosaur
increase in
family staring at a TV
ultraviolet
sitcom set in the
rays gave
90s.
dinosaurs cataracts, and they stumbled blindly into extinction. It was once believed they became
The
so
Ring.
huge and lethargic, they died of boredom. One of the more widely held theories is supported by the fact that about the time the dinosaurs disappeared, a meteor 5 to 10 miles wide hit the Earth, throwing up a crater 93 miles wide and surrounding the Earth in a huge cloud of dust and steam which blocked out the sun for months, possibly years. The only problem with this theory is that fossil teeth have been found from dinosaurs that lived long after this cataclysmic event. It's just such evidence that makes some scientists believe that the dinosaurs' decline was more gradual and might have been because they couldn't keep their bodies cool enough in the increasingly hot summers.
Well, it's
Gonna get dark soon for those dinosaurs.
Turn dinosaur habitats.
200 bits from Alistair, thank you. Ghost
Or
of a
the
lava
opposite may
comet.
have been the case. Rising sea levels might have flooded lowlands where most dinosaurs lived. Of one thing we are certain. After 160 million years of dominating the Earth, the dinosaurs did die out. But life on Earth continued to evolve until humans came along to ponder these fossilized remains and indulge in their fantastic reality. Some would say all over the world, dinosaurs have made quite a comeback, and there are more today than ever before.
So their filmmaking technique for this episode was to collect all this dinosaur kitsch and film
Although
it
they
in
are
stop
far
motion.
from real, perhaps they are the children born of our
Which is
fertile
kind of fun.
imaginations. And the hard
thanks,
evidence
Alistair.
of dinosaurs
20
mere
bits.
shadows
Have the
in
rest of the
stone.
bits. Thank you. I wonder if we're going to get a behind the scenes of this low-budget episode of Eyewitness. 200 bits from Jay's book, Ghost of a purple dinosaur with a green stomach dressed in a purple hat and a purple suit with a yellow dress shirt in front of a nighttime city backdrop. Oh, it's the Joker. Did you mean to make the Joker? Good work, Jace.
Certainly, there are many more dinosaurs waiting to be discovered, many new mysteries waiting to be pondered. And if it's true that life imitates art, maybe someday we'll even bring them back to life.
Bill Butt. Another one from Bill Butt. We love Bill Butt. Oh, we are getting a making of. They came up with the board game conceit for the game of paleontology. Thank you. And then they did
Eyewitness Museum. Created
they did
by
claymation
combining
Dinosaur.
traditional filmmaking techniques with state-of-the-art graphics, stripping away the mysteries of nature and science to reveal the essence of each subject. Bringing the world into sharp focus. The making of Eyewitness.
Okay, so this, in 94, this was the first series of Eyewitness.
The distinct style of the Eyewitness books is the basis for each of the programs. Each half-hour episode is based on a book title. The Eyewitness book's visual style gives the program makers a starting point and a challenge. The challenge of transferring the clarity and super-realism into moving images and sound.
Yeah, I mean, I assume it would have been produced on like Silicon
Now let's
Graphics
take a look
workstations
behind
or
the
something like
scenes
that.
At the making of Dinosaur. There are many ways of bringing dinosaurs to life. One expensive
Amiga,
but very comfortable way
Or
is to
Next
build a dinosaur
workstations.
using 3D computer graphics. Once we'd created our electronic model, it could be lit in different ways.
I don't know where
and seen
Eyewitness
from any
jousting comes
angle.
from.
As good as the real thing.
We probably have whatever tape that is.
A less comfortable way of creating the illusion took place on an army range on a cold winter's night.
The shot of the Stegosaurus tail.
Earth-moving machinery with the biomechanics of real dinosaurs. This involved a lot of carrying equipment across muddy fields. With the equipment wrapped in cling film to keep out most of the mud, the shoot began. In the finished program, we overlaid animated dinosaurs on top of the diggers and bulldozers. These models had been specially made for the Eyewitness dinosaur books and were brought to life by our animators.
I'm surprised they didn't just use stock footage of construction equipment.
Back in the Eyewitness studio,
They
we
did a
built
shoot.
a full-size Stegosaurus tail from latex, scaffolding, and fiberglass. The shot demonstrated the power of the animal's tail by crashing through a corrugated iron fence. Of course, the fence had to be painted white. Although the fence had been weakened, a tremendous amount of force was still needed to achieve the shot. Strict safety standards were observed by all the crew, for themselves and for the camera. Everyone stood well clear and held their breath.
Strict safety protocols. Stand well back and hold your breath. If you don't hold your breath, it's not safe. Yeah, that was a cool shot.
Our hero, Legs, was made of softer stuff.
Oh, hell yeah.
Plasticine. The dinosaur director, Ben, oversees a very delicate piece of shooting.
Stand back, stand well back.
The dinosaur race. Hardly high-tech, but good fun.
Turn over.
Yeah, it's kind of funny how, like, kitschy this particular Eyewitness tape is. Horse. Okay, it must have been from the first series, the jousting, because this is the first series. Probably not. It was horse. Okay, it has to be Eyewitness Horse. Do we have Eyewitness Horse? We have a lot of Eyewitness. That one, like many others, was sent in by Jacebook. Thank you, Jacebook, for Eyewitness Dinosaur, and I hope you all enjoyed it. Eyewitness... Oh, we don't have horse. Okay. We have plenty of Eyewitness, though. So never, don't you fret. Don't fret. We have many, many weeks and months of Eyewitness on that shelf behind me. Yes, I do have to get a haircut. I am going to in... I'm going to queue up one thing here. If I can find it. Yeah, I know where it is. Let's see. I just really have an itch for to hear Legally Distinct Jurassic Park theme right now. Thank you, Alberta. All right, and with that, I think we are done here today. I will not be here on Friday. Sorry, I will not be here this weekend. The next stream for sure will be Monday, next Monday. I'm not entirely sure about Friday. Probably won't be a stream on Friday, but I could surprise you. You never know. So until Monday, hey, everybody. Thanks for being here. Thanks for watching. Have a lovely week, and I will see you soon. Head on over to goldenvcr.com. Look at them tapes. Favorite them tapes. I'll be scanning more, I hope, soon.